Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney and welcome to my first, not really my first third video of the week, but this is gonna be the first of a regular 3 videos a week, at least for the time being. Come on. Sorry, I did not start with her sitting in the chair. Now she's gonna get mad. Okay, so this is Sunday, obviously, as you're watching this, and my plan, and we're just gonna kind of see how it's gonna work. I thought I'd give it a couple of months and see if it just gets to be too much filming this much in the editing and all that kind of thing. But I thought for Sundays, I would leave this reserved as like my tutorial days, sew-alongs, if I've got kind of a sew-along going on that we'll post on Sundays, you know, even if it's broken up on, you know, over 3 weeks or whatever. And be those kind of videos. So to kick it off, I thought I would do a tutorial on shortening blazer sleeves. So you guys have seen both of these blazers, this Pendleton one and this Eddie Bauer, I think? Eddie Bauer blazer, and I thrifted both of them, but their sleeves are way too long on me. Now they're a little oversized, which I want. I want that boyfriend blazer look, but I'm going to show you how to shorten the sleeves of a blazer. It is not hard. So that is gonna be the first, and I've had a lot of requests when I mentioned it. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I'd love to see that. It makes thrifting a lot of fun when you know you can change the sleeve length super easily. So that's gonna be the tutorial for today, and I hope you enjoy it. As always, leave any questions you have down below. And I'm gonna use, I had started a hashtag, the TK Sew Along, and I think I'm gonna just use that hashtag for anything that you guys, if you wanna follow along, anything that we do on this Sunday. So any of the tutorials that you're following, any of the actual sew-alongs that we're doing, any of that, if you wanna put the hashtag TK Sew Along, and I'll put that right here. I think it'd be fun. We can kind of have our own little community on Instagram and follow each other as we try out the different techniques or whatever it is that I happen to be doing on the Sunday. All right, so without further ado, I will go to the actual tutorial, and yeah, I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Bye. Okay guys, sorry my head's cut off on this frame. I'm still playing around with trying to film things. I need a better setup down here. I'm down here in my basement, my sewing room's there behind me, and I'm on my cutting table, so bear with me. I'm just really trying to figure out the best way to do these tutorials. Okay, I have 2 jackets, and I'm going to show you how to shorten the sleeves on a ready-to-wear blazer. These were both thrifted. One's Pendleton and one's an Eddie Bauer. I'm gonna be shortening both, but I'm just gonna show you the basics. It's very easy. Okay. Oh no, I have a hole in this one I'll have to mend. It's the other thing with wool, when you're thrifting, you've got to watch out for bug holes. Because a lot of times that's why they were gotten rid of, because of the bug holes. Okay, so first things first. Most blazers will have buttons here. And actually, there's like a faux vent that's right here, which I just find to be, I mean, what's the purpose of that? There's no buttonholes. This isn't functioning, so we're just gonna kind of get rid of that. I've tried this on, and I've determined that I've got to shorten the sleeves on this by 3 inches. So my finished sleeve length needs to be 3 inches shorter than my current sleeve length. So we will determine, I want to keep the same hem allowance in there, but we will determine what that is here in a minute. So first things first, I'm going to pop off my buttons. So for this, you need a seam ripper. So I'm gonna just take off my buttons and put them aside. Okay, my buttons are off. Now I'm gonna just show you on one sleeve because it's all the same. So we'll do one sleeve, and then it'll just be the same for the others, and I will show you some before and afters of what everything looks like. The other plus when you're shortening sleeves is that anything that might be worn on the cuff, because cuffs will get worn quite frequently, on the hem, it comes right off because you're gonna tuck things up. So now I'm gonna show you how to get into the jacket. All right, with women's jackets, men's jackets are, sorry, I hate that my head's cut off. Men's jackets are different. They are constructed a little differently in the lining, but women's jackets, so this works for women's jackets. That's what I'm gonna show you today. Pull your sleeves inside out and see if they've got, if not, we can create one, but you just wanna look and see, and there is. You see there's a seam here where it's been pinched together and then sewn shut. Can you see that? Usually there's one in one of the sleeves. So this is where the whole jacket was, the lining was bagged and the whole jacket was turned through this hole, and then it was just top stitched closed because it's in the sleeve and you can't see it, so it's genius. So I'm just going to seam rip this open real quick. Okay, now you have a hole in the lining. I'm actually just going to take off these buttons real quick too. A lot of this stuff is also things you don't see when you're thrifting because you are in a rush and just looking quickly. So, because I found a couple of little bug holes, you know, like a moth hole, which I can probably mend enough that I'll, you know, for what I paid for it, I'll still wear it as a boyfriend blazer. Okay, so we have this hole. So what I'm going to do, so the whole jacket is turned inside out right now. You know, I've got the sleeves that are pulled out on both sides. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the other sleeve first. So I'm gonna go in through this hole. So I'm going in between the lining and the jacket, and I'm gonna trail all the way across the back of the jacket to the other sleeve. And again, I'm in between the lining and the jacket. And I'm just gonna grab, you can feel in there the hem, and I'm gonna pull it all out through this hole. So that is what your sleeve looks like. There's the lining and there's the actual sleeve. And here you can see there's like the vent, the faux vent. And this has been tacked up in a few places, so I'm just, gonna throw my seam ripper. I'm just going to untack the few spots where this is tacked down, because the hem has been tacked just in a couple places, just so that your hem doesn't fall. Which is not a bad idea to do once you're done with your alteration. Although a few couple of hand stitches at the seams is, you know, you don't really need to catch stitch the whole thing. Oh, and sometimes ready to wear it, they'll actually have it glued in spots, which is kind of annoying. All right, so there we have it. You will see that there is interfacing. I need a seam gauge ruler. You'll see that there's interfacing right there in the hem, and you're probably gonna wanna keep that and just, you know, cut a strip of, you'll just wanna cut a strip of interfacing and reapply it a little higher up. So first of all, I'm going to measure here, and it looks like they've used a 5/8 seam allowance, and that also it is 2 inches from the cut edge to the hem. So there's a 5/8 seam allowance in here between the lining and the, where the lining is attached to the jacket. And then, so I mean, that's technically like 1 1/8 inches of a hem. But if you measure it from the cut edge, it is about 2 inches. So I want to keep, is that right? Doesn't hurt to measure in a few different places. Yeah. 2 inches from the cut edge. All right, so that's just important information to know. So now I am going to seam rip, and I'm going to take the lining apart from the jacket. Okay, there we go. They are now separate. Now again, we are literally just gonna go from the cut edge, and you can iron this if it finds that it makes it a little easier to manage. Because again, the sleeve lining has a little bit of a jump pleat built into it so that it's not super tight and it's not pulling on the hem. But we're just gonna take everything, 3 inches off everything, and just as long as we use the same seam allowance that was there before, and as long as we turn up the hem the same as it was before, everything will be just as it was designed when you made the jacket. So now, again, I'm gonna run into this faux vent, is what I'm trying to say. But you know what? I'm actually just gonna cut this off. I'm just gonna continue my seam line down through here. I mean, you don't have to cut it off, but I'm just gonna continue the seam line down through here and pretend like it's just part of the seam, because it's not even like a functioning thing. So there's no sense in keeping it. So I'm just gonna measure 3 inches up, and I'm gonna cut 3 inches off all the way around my sleeve. And then we will talk about putting new interfacing into the sleeve. So I'm gonna cut 3 inches off of the sleeve and also off the lining. Okay, so I've cut off, I feel like my camera is shrinking, maybe. Sorry, again, just trying to figure this out. I've got a small little tripod here. All right, so I have cut 3 inches off of both the regular sleeve and off of the lining. Now, I wanna say, anywhere there's a seam line, you may wanna go back and just like reinforce the ends of the seam line there with your machine, just because you've cut like the back stitch off, basically. I'm also going to, so I'm gonna go do that. I'm gonna go back stitch at my seam lines here, and I'm also, I'm just gonna sew, and there's a pressed crease here of this vent, and I'm just literally gonna go ahead and sew all the way down. I mean, I'll put the buttons back on. It'll look like a vent that's there. It's just there's no need for that part. So I'm just gonna sew it down and trim it down a little bit just to reduce some bulk. And then we are going to come back and I'm going to apply the interfacing that was on the previous jacket was 3 inches wide, so I'm just going to apply a 3-inch wide strip of interfacing, and I'm just gonna stick it. You could stick your sleeve on a sleeve board if you have a sleeve, like a little mini ironing board, or just on a seam roll. Try not to do not put interfacing over your seam allowances, butt it right up to it. It makes altering later much easier. So I'm gonna do a 3-inch wide strip, because that's what was in the jacket before, and I'm just gonna do it all the way, just cut one long strip, and I'm going to just cut it off at the right when it butts up to my seam allowances. So I'm gonna go do that real quick, and then I'll be back to show you what we got. All right, here I am at my pressing board. Again, I'm still trying to figure out this whole filming thing, so as far as tutorials. Okay. So I have, I've not put on the interfacing yet, but I have sewn my sleeves just here at the bottoms to their you know, because I basically cut the back stitch off, and I trimmed, this was the vent that I don't really want. So I'm actually gonna press that portion open real quick, and then I've got this strip of weft interfacing, and I'm just going to press this from the cut edge. Again, I'm not gonna go over my seam allowances, but I'm just gonna press it, fuse it all the way around both of the wool sleeves. And I'm using this sleeve board here for just that purpose. But again, you could use a rolled up newspaper wrapped in a towel, or if you have a seam roll, which I highly suggest you have a seam roll if you don't, if you wanna do any tailoring. All right, now I am just going to fuse the fusible to the wool. Again, it's 3 inches because that's what was there originally. And I'm not going over the seam allowance. All right, so now I've got 3 inches worth of fusible interfacing, weft fusible interfacing on there. Now, I had a 5/8 inch seam allowance of attaching this to my lining, but then the hem was turned up 2 inches. I mean, of course, 2 of those inches does go back into the seam allowance, but this hem was pressed up 2 inches previously. So that's what I want to press up now. So now I'm going to go ahead and just set a crease and press my sleeve up the 2 inches. Ooh. All right, so now that has been pressed 2 inches. Now again, I would go ahead and do this on the other sleeve, but I'm just gonna show you how to do one sleeve right now, and then I'll go back and do the other one. So now what I find works best is to go ahead and pull this sleeve back through, you know, like it would have been worn. So I'm gonna pull the sleeve and the lining so I just find this helps ensure that it doesn't get, it's the wrong sleeve, that it doesn't get twisted. All right, so now we've got our sleeve that's been folded, the hem's been folded up. And then here is my lining that I'm pulling it all the way up. And what I like to do, because we're gonna go back inside things here in a second. If you have ever bagged a lining, this is exactly the same thing. This is how you would finish off sleeves if you were bagging a lining. Don't worry if you haven't, I'm gonna show you what to do. But most importantly, stick your arm through this and make sure that the lining is not twisted. And then you just want to match up your seam lines, which are right there and right there. So then what I like to do is I will fold the seam allowance over on the lining and put just on one of the seam allowances, and I'm gonna pop a pin. So in other words, it just helps you wrap your brain around it. This is what it will look like when it's all finished sewing. So when I go back inside of it and everything starts to get all twisty-turvy, it gives me a point of reference so I don't get confused and sew my lining all crooked. All right, so now that's been done. So now I'm gonna go back through the hole in my lining, and I'm just going to grab where I've just pinned, basically, and pull it through. And then stab myself. Okay. So then I can tell right sides together, those are pinned together. So there we have it. So now you can go around, I just got lipstick all over the place. You can go around if you would like and pin your lining to your sleeve, right sides together at the cut edge. But I just like to pin the, it gets really weird in here too. Just don't panic if it starts to look really weird. I like to just pin my seam lines if that, but you all know how I feel about pins, so. All right, now So you've got like this weird Mobius like weirdness going on, and that is fine. So now you're gonna go to the sewing machine and you're gonna sew it. And I like to put the lining against the feed dogs, and it feels really weird when you're sewing, but you're basically just going to sew in a circle all the way around, and you are sewing the lining to the jacket. And again, I'm using 5/8 of an inch because that's what they had used in the jacket when I opened it up. So at 5/8 of an inch or 1.5 centimeters, I'm going to sew the lining to the jacket all the way around with the lining on the feed dogs. That helps ease it in. So I'll be right back. Okay, so now you have this weird, again, Mobius looking creation. So now, what you want to do, so you've already pressed in your 2 inches, right? If you kind of fold again on that line so that your lining kind of folds back, what I like to do is tack my seam allowances together. So I will tack this to this seam allowance at both sides, because in this one there's a upper sleeve and an under sleeve. So we're just gonna refold it back at that line that I folded in, that I pressed in, and I'm just going to tack the seam allowance here where the lining and the coat are attached to the seam allowance here, and that's gonna keep my hem from falling out. So let's do that real quick, just with some hand stitches, and then we will come back and flip everything right side out. Okay, again, I will do all of this again to the other sleeve, but now we're gonna go back in through our hole, stuff everything back through the hole, try not to set anything on fire. And there you have it. Now you can go back in if you want and press a crease into your lining with the jump pleat. So the jump pleat is where that lining like hangs over the seam allowance a little bit just to give you movement. I mean, I never do that, but you could if you wanted to. And yeah, now all you need to do is reattach your buttons, and I just sew them. So this is the seam, this is the, you have the coat on. This is the top sleeve right here, and then the seam where it connects to the under sleeve, you just want to sew the 3 buttons on the back side of that seam, so where it's coming to the back of you. So yeah, you're just going to reattach those buttons, and I literally just sew them on. You can even sew them through the lining if you want, however you want to do that. You know, kind of pull the jump lining down a little bit. You can, if you want to do it by hand and not go through the lining, that works too, because sometimes you can get the lining sewn down weird in there and then it's kind of pulls and looks funny, so it's up to you. But yeah, just reattach the buttons onto the back side of that seam, and you are finished. So I'm just going to do that to the other sleeve. I reattach my buttons and show you what we got. I'm going to do it to the other jacket as well. And then, yeah, that's all there is to it. It's pretty easy. Okay, I forgot to tell you how to close up your sleeve. Okay, so once both of your sleeves are right side out, so this can be before or after you do your buttons, it doesn't really matter. You're gonna wanna find that sleeve that you went into the hole in your lining. As you can see, I totally tore the lining here. But basically, what you're gonna do, I'm gonna cobble this together, but you're just gonna pinch that seam closed together again, and then just top stitch, edge stitch basically, this whole seam to close up that from the outside, because it's in your sleeve and you'll never see it. And honestly, as I'm looking at this lining more, it's pretty worn in spots, so I'm not gonna be too overly concerned. So yeah, you're just gonna pinch that closed and then top stitch or edge stitch that seam closed. And then you're done. Add your buttons and then you're finished. Okay, I will be back to show you, or I'll put at the end of this pictures of the before and after of the sleeve shortening to show you the difference. Okay, thanks guys.